Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Connection, coming to you from Spirit and Truth Sanctuary. I'm sorry that we're getting a little bit of a late start this morning. We were having some streaming issues, and if we had not stopped and started over, those of you who follow us on live stream and Facebook would not have seen us. So we had to start over, which put us a few minutes behind, but I'm sure you will forgive us. Let's begin with our morning blessing. Spirit of Truth, we give thanks today for our connection in this time of togetherness, for our sameness as well as our contrasts, and for the light we reflect to one another and see in one another. We give thanks for the holy that holds us and for the humanity that always brings us back to the holy. We ask that our happiness, our peace, and our joy now be woven into the fabric of the world around us, and that it serve as nourishment to feed the heart of the collective. In the name and nature of the Christ, amen, and so it is. All right, so I have a matter that I would like for everyone who loves me and my family to keep in prayer for the next week or so. This year, as most of you know, every year my mother goes a little overboard decorating the house for Christmas. And this particular year, we have a cat. So it's been an interesting couple of days, and I just need everyone to pray that my mother and the cat and the Christmas decorations can all peacefully coexist for just a few more days without killing each other or destroying the house. I would appreciate that. Anyway, I just thought I would bring a little levity to your life this morning. It has been very interesting, though, listening to Mother try to reason with the cat and tell it why it shouldn't be somewhere. Okay. All right. So on to our quotes. The first one, if you are falling, dive. Find a place inside where there's joy, and the joy will burn out the pain. Life has no meaning. Each of us has meaning that we bring or give to life. It is a waste to be asking the question when you are the answer. Joseph Campbell. All right, next. Who am I, you ask? I am made from all the people I've encountered and all the things I've experienced. Inside, I hold the laughter of my friends, the arguments with my parents, the chattering of young children, and the warmth from kind strangers. Inside, there are stitchings from cracked hearts, bitter words from heated discussions, music that gets me through the emotions I cannot convey. I am made from all these people and moments. This is who I am. Ming D. Liu. All right, next, I love music. For me, music is morning coffee. It's mood medicine. It's pure magic. A good song is like a good meal. I just want to inhale it and then share a bite with someone else. Hoda Kotb. All right, nobody is too busy. It's just a matter of priorities. Next, today will be what it is. I will be who I am, and there will be beauty in both. Lastly, I'm going to make everything around me beautiful. That will be my life. Okay, so usually around this time of year, I talk about how we can de-stress during the holidays, and I give you some tips, etc. But I've already done that this year. I think I gave you some tips last week. So today, I thought we'd do something to actually de-stress, not just read a list of ways to distress, but really practice de-stressing. And nothing de-stresses me more than reading or listening to beautiful poetry. So that's what we're going to do a little bit of today. But I want to talk for just a minute first. When I was a teenager, my brother and my two cousins, Dana and Deanna, who lived with us, used to make fun of me because even though I was very social, I also spent a great deal of time shut up in my room alone. And whenever they would come in to see what I was doing, I was usually doing one of three things. I was either reading a book or writing in my journal or listening to music. More specifically, I was recording or creating, and I've told you about this before, my famous K-Tel mixtapes. I know I've told this story before, but one of my favorite Christmas presents ever was this stereo system that had a turntable, a radio, as well as a dual cassette deck, which meant you could record either from the radio or from an album or from one cassette to another, which I thought that was the greatest invention ever in my whole life. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And so when they would come in, I was either doing what they called K-telling, or I was writing, even though it was rarely poetry. That's what they chose to call it. So I got teased a lot about how much I spent time writing poetry. But that's okay, because that actually prepared me for a lot of things that would happen later on in my life. One thing it prepared me for was teaching English and literature, specifically at the academy that we had for years. I taught literature to the 9th through 12th graders. Actually, I taught the whole English class consisted of 3 parts: grammar, composition/writing, and literature. And I would usually save the literature for the last part of the year because it was easier to keep the kids interested with literature toward the end of the year when they were all getting spring fever, ready to get out of school for the summer. So during the literature quarter, every Friday we had what I called Poetry Day, where I would let each student bring in a poem that they liked or that they had written themselves, or song lyrics, because song lyrics too are a form of poetry. And we would spend the entire class time every Friday on what I called Poetry Day, with them reading the poems they had chosen in front of the class and explaining what they thought they meant, or why they found them personally meaningful. And if they had chosen song lyrics, I would let them bring the song in and play it on. Back then, the mechanism we had was the big boom box. I would let them play it, which they loved. My only condition was that they couldn't just play the song. They had to read the lyrics and explain them. So the whole enterprise was interesting, to say the least. Letting teenagers do that at a private Christian school was pretty radical. And some of them pushed the boundaries a little, but that was the point. It got their imaginations going and it made them think. So many of them later in life have shared with me, when we have bumped into each other, or they have contacted me on Facebook, that was their favorite part of my class. Some said that was even their favorite part of high school, period. It's what they remembered and enjoyed most about high school English, which is a subject that many kids dread and don't like very much. 2 of my students even told me that they went on to become English teachers because of it. So I'm pretty proud of that. I was able to see firsthand how the power of poetry and beautiful language could actually steer the course of someone's life. And I'm so grateful to have had that experience. And then, of course, the other thing in my life that spending all of that time reading and writing poetry prepared me for is what I'm doing now. I have years and years of knowledge and inspiration just floating around in my head that I am now able to call back up and share with you. So that is another experience for which I am grateful. So don't ever let anyone tell you or make you believe that just sitting in your room reading or writing poetry is a waste of time. It's not. I am fully aware that hard work is a good and necessary part of life, but just relaxing, just chilling out, which reading and writing poetry is a great way to do that, is valuable too. In fact, when we let our brains take a break from what is known as analytical thinking and switch it to something creative or restful, when we switch gears a little bit, it actually increases our productivity. So I want to depart from the usual teaching today and just share with you some of the poetry that has meant so much to me over the years. Some of the pieces that I was writing about in those many, many journals that I kept, that I got teased about. So everybody just take a deep breath in and relax, and let's go into chill out mode and de-stress a little bit together today. At first I thought I would comment on the poems about what they meant to me, but that would in a way defeat the purpose, because each person has to interpret poetry for him or herself because it's so personal. So I've decided to just read with minimal commentary. I'm going to have to say a few things and let you decide what these poems and song lyrics mean to you. But first, just a little more about the value of poetry in general. Sigmund Freud said, "Everywhere I go as a scientist, I find that a poet has beat me there." He further explained that poetry helps you integrate your head and your heart. That's interesting. We talk a lot about that here. Poetry touches our spirit and moves our emotions. I remember I read one time a book about mysticism in which the author specifically claimed that she considered Jesus to be a mystic. And there was a particular line in the book, I couldn't locate it in all my stacks of books, but it was something like that the emotion of the soul can unlock a door in a moment that logic has been unsuccessfully battering on for years. In other words, sometimes you need something that moves your soul rather than just sheer intellectual logic. Okay, there are some problems that can't be figured out logically. Oscar Wilde said this: all art is useless. And thank goodness, because we so badly need things that are useless as a balance in this age where so much value is placed on figuring out what someone or something can do for you, where we reduce someone or something's worth to how much work they or it can produce. So much emphasis is put on monetizing everything and figuring out how to make people pay money for things. The bottom line has become, well, the bottom line. There's not enough appreciating beauty just for beauty's sake in our society. All right, so that's what Oscar Wilde had to say. My husband, to demonstrate this point, my husband used to be very fond of the phrase form follows function, which means it doesn't matter how pretty something looks. If it isn't useful or efficient, it's worthless. And then one day, after we had been married for a couple of years, he commented on a particular little table that we had in our bedroom. He said, I used to think that table was useless. It's not wide enough to really put any things on. Plus, I wouldn't let him put his stuff on it anyway because it would scratch it up because he's not careful. And so it sat under this really pretty painting, and I just had a few little things on it that it had taken me hours to get placed just exactly the way that I wanted it. And he would often complain that we didn't need anything in the house that was just for looks. But after a few years, he changed his mind and he came to love that little table. And in fact, he said that it was the prettiest piece of furniture in the whole house and that now he got it. And that's what poetry, among other things, does for us. It helps us get it. It helps us understand that some things are in our lives for no other reason than to just be beautiful and for us to appreciate their beauty. And it teaches us to appreciate also being rather than just doing, to find that balance. So 2 more quotes and then we're going to read some poetry. W.H. Auden said, "Poetry makes nothing happen. And we, in our current society, underestimate what an amazing feat that is." Next, a man named Gary Leonard, whose TED Talks I watch quite a bit, says, "Knowledge speaks, but wisdom is knowing when to listen." So let's just relax and enjoy some beautiful poetry today. The first is from, it's not really a poem, but I'm going to describe to you a scene from one of my favorite movies called Dead Poets Society. The movie is set in an all-male private school in the 1960s, and Robin Williams played a literature teacher whose methods and styles of teaching were very unconventional. In fact, on the first day of class, he begins by having one of the students begin reading the introduction of their textbook, which is describing in very sterile, boring terms the various elements of poetry, and the title of it is Understanding Poetry. So it becomes painfully obvious that these students, all boys who look to be in the 9th or 10th grade, are bored out of their minds. And then the professor does something that none of them expects. He tells them to tear the pages of the entire introduction out of their books because it's all excrement and has nothing at all to do with understanding poetry. And so at first the boys are in shock and disbelief. It goes against everything they've ever been taught, not to destroy property, especially property that doesn't belong to them, especially a book. But then when they realize he's serious and he's not trying to just trick them in order to punish those who fall for it, you begin to see this sheer delight on their faces. His point, of course, was that you can't approach understanding poetry in an analytical way or from a mathematical logical perspective that states if you combine rhythm and meter, etc., in a certain amount, then you will end up with a perfect poem. In fact, he believes quite the opposite is true, that the best poetry is born of passion and a little chaos, and that it means something different to each person who reads it, and therefore writing a generic introduction containing a formula for understanding poetry is both ridiculous and impossible. So once his students understand this and they see his passion for the subject of poetry, they get excited about it too. And they instantly you can see that the atmosphere in the room just changes from one of boredom to that of a true love for learning and a genuine curiosity about the subject matter at hand. So here are some quotes from this scene in the movie. He says, this is a battle, a war, and the casualties could be your hearts and souls. Armies of academics going forward measuring poetry. No, we will not have that here. In my class, you will learn to think for yourselves. You will learn to savor words and language. No matter what anybody tells you, words and ideas can change the world. I see that look in Mr. Pitt's eye. That 19th century literature has nothing to do with the business world or going to medical school. Mr. Hopkins, you may agree with him, thinking, yes, we should simply study our textbook and learn our rhyme and meter and then go quietly about the business of achieving other ambitions. I've got a little secret for you. Huddle up. We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion. Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are the things we stay alive for. All right, so that was a beautiful scene from that movie to set the mood today. So the next one I'm going to read is one of the greatest poems ever written by Maya Angelou called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on the dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens up his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. All right, and this next one is my all-time favorite hymn. It is lyrics to the hymn, Be Still My Soul. Be still my soul, the Lord is on thy side. Bear patiently thy cross of grief or pain. Leave to thy God to order and provide. In every change he faithful will remain. Be still my soul, thy best, thy heavenly friend, through stormy ways leads to a joyful end. Be still my soul, thy God doth undertake to guide the future as he has the past. Thy hope, thy confidence, let nothing shake. All now mysterious shall be bright at last. Be still my soul, the waves and winds still know his voice who ruled them while he dwelt below. Be still my soul, the hour is hastening on, when we shall be forever with the Lord. When disappointment, grief, and fear are gone, sorrow forgot, love's purest joys restored. Be still my soul, when change and tears are past, all safe and blessed, we shall meet at last. All right, so obviously those were song lyrics, which, as I mentioned earlier, are a form of poetry. And one of the greatest lyricists in the Christian world, but, now we really don't make any distinction between what is secular and what is what is secular and what is sacred. But this was her genre was Christianity and Christian songs, but I still hold the belief that it doesn't matter. These were still some of the greatest lyrics to me of the whole 20th century. And so here is my favorite song of hers. It's an artist that I was privileged to know personally, who was a member of our church for years, who has transitioned now to glory, Dottie Rambo. And my favorite song of hers, the lyrics to which are "The Holy Hills." The holy hills of heaven call me to mansions bright across the sea, where loved ones wait and crowns are given when the hills of home start calling me. This house of flesh is but a prison. Bars of bone hold my soul, but the doors of clay will burst wide open when the angel sets my spirit free. I'll take my flight like the mighty eagle when the hills of home start calling me. I see loved ones over yonder. Their tears are gone and their hearts are free. And from the cross, my Savior beckons, and the hills of home keep calling me. This house of flesh is but a prison. Bars of bone hold my soul. But these doors of clay will burst wide open when the angel sets my spirit free. I'll take my flight like the mighty eagle when the hills of home start calling me. All right, we're going to go old school now, way back a couple of centuries to a sonnet, okay, which is a particular kind of poem. And this one happens to be about romantic love. It's by a woman named Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and it is sonnet number 43. You'll recognize it when I start reading. It's very famous. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight. For the ends of being an ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, and tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. Okay, that one's a beautiful, beautiful one. Let me get some water for a second. This next one is an inspirational one. It's by Rudyard Kipling, and it's simply called If. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son. And I'm going to update that to say, or you will be a woman, my daughter. It's all the same. All right. The next one is also another famous one, but it is about the importance of the decisions we make throughout our lives. It's called, by Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler, long I stood and looked down as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. All right, so let's travel back now in time to a magical time when politics was not quite such the blood sport it is now. I know politics has always been rough, and people talk about, we're more divided now than we've ever been, and then other people will say, like I read, for instance, the other day, a story about this senator, I think it was back in the 1930s or 40s, and his district did not like something he had done, and they literally physically ran him out of town and put him on a train going out of town. So politics has always been rough, but it seems like now it's kind of hit a crescendo. But I want to just roll back a few years to a particular political speech that I found particularly beautiful. And it was one of the campaign speeches of President Obama. Yes, we can. It was a creed written into the founding documents that declared the destiny of a nation. Yes, we can. It was whispered by slaves and abolitionists as they blazed a trail toward freedom. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. It was sung by immigrants as they struck out from distant shores and pioneers who pushed westward against an unforgiving wilderness. Yes, we can. It was the call of workers who organized, women who reached for the ballot, a president who chose the moon as our new frontier, a king who took us to the mountaintop and pointed the way to the promised land. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can to justice and equality. Yes, we can to opportunity and prosperity. Yes, we can heal this nation. Yes, we can repair this world. We know the battle ahead will be long, but always remember that no matter what obstacles stand in our way, nothing can stand in the way of the power of millions of voices calling for change. We have been told we cannot do this by a chorus of cynics. They will only grow louder and more dissonant. We've been asked to pause for a reality check. We've been warned against offering the people of this nation false hope. But in the unlikely story that is America, there has never been anything false about hope. The hopes of the little girl who goes to a crumbling school in Dillon are the same as the dreams of the boy who learns on the streets of LA. We will remember that there is something happening in America, that we are not as divided as our politics suggest, that we are one people, that we are one nation, and together we will begin the next great chapter in the American story with 3 words that will ring from coast to coast, from sea to shining sea. Yes, we can. I love that. So I believe that we still can, even though we've kind of devolved from that. All right, next, here's one that is particularly what's the word I'm looking for? It relates well to the season we find ourselves in right now, the Christmas season. O holy night. O holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt his worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, O hear the angel voices. O night divine, O night when Christ was born. Truly he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise we. Let all within us praise his holy name. Fall on your knees, O hear the angel voices. O night divine, O night when Christ was born. And we know that we believe that Jesus of Nazareth was born and he became the Christ, as we all can become the Christ. But sometimes when you go back and listen to these songs, you have to remember the time in which they were written and appreciate that those people were at a different time. And now, but we don't have to throw those songs out all necessarily, just because we have grown and evolved. All right, again, we're going to go back a couple, like we did with Elizabeth Barrett Browning's sonnet. We're going to go back again a couple of centuries, I believe, to probably the 19th century. William Wordsworth, Ode, Intimations on Immortality. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life's star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar. Not in entire forgetfulness, and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, the glory in the flower, we will grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind, in the primal sympathy which having been, must ever be, in the soothing thoughts that spring out of human suffering, in the faith that looks through death. Thanks to the human heart by which we live, thanks to its tenderness, its joys and fears. To me, the meanest flower that blooms can give thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears. All right, and when we are in need of some calm, there is nothing more soothing than this passage from the Bible, the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So this next one is one that I used to teach my students. I told you earlier about the fact that I taught high school English for a while, and I always taught them this poem. And I love it because when you truly know who you are, when you have recognized your own divinity, you're no longer anxious about the future. And that's what this poem is about. And it's called Waiting. Serene, I fold my hands and wait, nor care for wind, nor tide, nor sea. I rave no more against time or fate, for lo, my own shall come to me. I stay my haste, I make delays, for what avails this eager pace? I stand amid the eternal ways, and what is mine shall know my face. Asleep, awake, by night or day, the friends I seek are seeking me. No wind can drive my bark astray, nor change the tide of destiny. What matter if I stand alone? I wait with joy the coming years. My heart shall reap where it hath sown, and garner up its fruit of tears. The waters know their own and draw the brook that springs in yonder height. So flows the good with equal law unto the soul of pure delight. The stars come nightly to the sky, the tidal wave unto the sea. Nor time, nor space, nor deep, nor high can keep my own away from me. All right, so basically that means just be still and know. And whatever you need and whatever you want is going to come to you. Get in that vibration to match it, and it's going to come to you. All right, I'm going to end today with some lyrics that I have always believed perfectly describe the mission of our ministry here. And it's a song that was written by Gloria Gaither, I Then Shall Live. I then shall live as one who's been forgiven. I'll walk with joy to know my debts are paid. I know my name is clear before my Father. I am his child, and I am not afraid. So greatly pardoned, I'll forgive my brother. The law of love I gladly will obey. I then shall live as one who's learned compassion. I've been so loved that I'll risk loving too. I know how fear builds walls instead of bridges. I'll dare to see another's point of view. And when relationships demand commitment, then I'll be there to care and follow through. Your kingdom come around and through and in me. Your power and glory, let them shine through me. Your hallowed name, oh, may I bear with honor, and may your living kingdom come in me. The bread of life, oh, may I share with honor, and may you feed a hungry world through me. Amen. I love that. That last line that says, and may you feed a hungry world through me, always makes me go back and think of the morning blessing we have been reading all year long in 2022, that the part that says, we ask that our happiness, our peace, and our joy now be woven into the fabric of the world around us, and that it serve as nourishment to feed the heart of the collective. That's the same sentiment in that. May the Christ consciousness feed a world that is hungry for it through me. And that is my prayer for myself. That is my prayer for you. I hope you have a very, very Merry Christmas. Join us tomorrow night for our weekly, our Wednesday night service. And then we will also have a broadcast on Christmas Eve. Benny, do you know what time that is? Is that 6:30? I believe it's 6:30. It might be 7. You were sent a letter, or you can always look at the website to make sure. But we will also have a Christmas Eve broadcast for you, a virtual service for you to share with us on Christmas Eve, Saturday night. And then remember, Sunday morning, Christmas Day, we're going to let you spend time with your families. We'll have a virtual service, but nothing here in person. And then I'll be back here next Tuesday for the very last connection service of the year 2022. Until then, I love you. Be at peace. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. I love you.